Good morning, everybody. Well, I've got the house in reasonable order. I want to put well, it's a sort of a coffee cake, that oat bread that I like so much. I want to put one of those in the oven before everybody gets here. But other than that, I'm about ready for our little gathering this afternoon. And as I said, we're just going to sit and crochet for a couple of hours or do whatever handiwork they bring. I think one of the guys, this is a both men and women group. I think one of the guys is into, what's it called, chainmail. So he might bring that project, but he does several other things as well. And I'll tell you about that after this afternoon. But I'm about ready for them, so I'm going to take my usual morning break here and just do a couple more rows on this scarf. Remember, we're using the same stitch as we used in the cloche hat, and it's the same yarn. We're using up this extra skein of yarn that we had, and we'll see how we come out here. I have not only one skein of it extra because I always buy extra, and that's how my yarn stash gets so big. I always have leftover, but that's okay. Okay, we're at the end of this row, if I get my hook through here properly. There we go. All right, now 1, 2, 3, and turn. And I like to turn so that chain faces outward there. Okay, you know what? I don't like that right there. I'm going to take this out, this last one out. See, this is the thing about crochet. You can just kind of, if something doesn't look quite right to you, you can go in here and make it better. I'm trying to get through the top of this particular chain, which is curved here. There I go. There, I just have to get it right, in the right spot. Okay, there, that's better, yes. Now 1, 2, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, turn. And turn my hook around. Okay. And here we go across our row again. I'm going to unwind some yarn here. And remember my trusty little river rock that holds the yarn up here on the table. Just get yourself some rocks. They're so useful. That sounds so silly, but really they are so useful. I always have a rock of some sort and size within reach. I use them to hold recipe books open and hold the yarn on the table here, and all right. Here we go. And we're going across again. I thought of something while I was out feeding this morning. What you don't think of when you're not trying to think of it. But remember how we talked about 3 kinds of pain a few days ago? Physical pain, emotional pain, and financial pain. And then we've talked in the past about, really there are 3 big areas of life in which pain occurs, and nearly all pain falls into one of them, and those are health. Think of these as broad categories. Those are health and relationships and money. And I was thinking about another category of experiences, I guess is a good word for it, experiences that people have, which kind of incorporates all the different individual, I want to say instantiations. That's not a word that's used very often, at least outside of philosophy, but instances. Think of it that way. Very few instances that don't fit into this. And these are categories that, well, they come from several teachings, and they're very old. And some teachers are teaching them today, and they've been around and taught for eons. But these categories, I think most recently they're coming back into our view through the work of Ramesh Balsekar and some of his, what should I say, followers or people who have studied him. And these categories, Roger Castillo, I'm not sure how he pronounces his last name, is one that does a lot directly with this, but other people do too. This is common knowledge. It's not core to anyone. And that those instances, nearly every pain is one of these, falls in one of these. And they are guilt, blame. Now those are like 2 sides of the same coin, because one, you're blaming yourself, and one, you're blaming someone else for whatever the problem is, or the pain is, or whatever's going on. I've got to get this stitch through the end here. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now we'll do our chain and turn. So one is guilt and one is blame. In guilt, you're blaming yourself. In blame, you're blaming someone else. I'm going to turn and turn my needle, my hook. Okay. The other one is pride. Pride when you think you've done something fantastic, or for whatever reason, maybe pride even in the way you look, or you're claiming something to yourself. You're flaunting something about yourself that you think you yourself deserve praise for, or credit for, or reward for of some sort or another. So guilt, blame, pride. And, it can be intellectual pride. It can be there are all kinds of pride. And the other one, there are two more two more categories of this, and both of them have two things in them. One is worry and anxiety. And there are millions of us in this world, and maybe you're one of them, I certainly have been, who are born with a very well-developed, worry bone, as I call it. And worry and anxiety, usually if you have one, you have at least some of the other one. They kind of go together. That's why they're a twosome, they're a cluster in this system of thought. And the final one is another twosome, another category, and that's expectations and attachments to outcome. You know, if we don't get what we think, if something doesn't turn out the way we think it's supposed to, the way we expected it to, then we're upset. It causes us pain. Now, it's not that it causes us. It's not that the thing that happened or didn't happen is actually what causes the pain. The pain comes from our expectation or attachment to the outcome. So, those are 5 areas. And you know, if you take the time, instead of just going ahead and blaming or feeling guilty, if you look at those, look at whatever's happening in your life. I find this to be true anyway. Whatever is happening, you know, somebody didn't... Take a mundane example. My husband loves his morning paper, and once in a while it doesn't get delivered. Okay, then I have to call well, he could do it, but it's just the way the household works. I would be the one to do it. Then I have to call the paper office and go through the rigmarole and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Turning again. But you know, when you can see, okay, so how do you know what's going on in that delivery person's life? You don't. And it's going to happen sometimes. The world is full of human beings that interact with each other. And human beings, have you ever noticed, they're not perfect? Wow. Big revelation there. But at any rate, when something, what I started to say was, when something like that happens, if you kind of put it through these filters, okay, what is it? The paper doesn't get delivered. I get annoyed. I'm blaming the paper person. He should have done his job. He's been doing this for X years. Why can't he at least be consistent? Blah, 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 blah. Would say I to myself. And You see, it's directly, it's blame. And that's just my programming, my expecting. It's also got expectations of an outcome in there. My expecting that this paper is going to be there every morning when I reheat my mother's coffee, because she drinks it so slowly that a normal cup of coffee is cold by the time she's halfway through. So it has to be reheated, or else you have to pour her a new cup, either one. And, you know, I just expect when I go out while I'm waiting for that to reheat, that the paper will be there. And any number of things, you know, you can put it through. Well, what does that mean? It means I expect that other person to be always, almost not like a person, to be a robot. Now, there's a lot more behind this teaching, and we don't need to get into all of that, but I just remembered that all this morning, how so many systems of thought in terms of human behavior all fit together. You know, it's looking at ourselves from a different perspective. And it can even be with your animals, or with the weather, or it can be with anything. Such a, you know, it's just, there we go. And chaining. And turning again. And turning my needle. Why am I suddenly calling this a needle? It's certainly not a needle. We know that perfectly well. A needle, it is not. Okay, let's get some more yarn up here. You know, oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I found a pattern last night. I was just browsing a little bit for a few minutes before I went to bed. I found a pattern last night. This is looking pretty good, don't you think? What was it called? It was called a soft shoulder shrug. And it was kind of neat. You know, it's sort of a shawl, and it has a ring, about a 2 or 3 inch ring in the middle where it comes together in the front, and it's just worn over your shoulders. And I thought, hey, that's really different. That's really neat. That would make a fantastic gift. I don't know if I'd have much occasion on which to wear it, but one of my nieces certainly would. And I thought, gee, that would make a great little gift for her. So anyway, I thought, okay. And I went to, it's a free downloadable pattern, so I thought it would work for us also in the projects that we're doing a buddy system on. But lo and behold, the yarn that it's made with, it's a Karen yarn, and it's been discontinued. And I found a couple of places where you can get one color or another, but the whole thing has been discontinued. It's 50% acrylic and 50% wool. Now, I normally don't gravitate toward wool very much, but I thought, well, for this I'd do it. But lo and behold, it's a discontinued yarn. And then I spent a little bit of time looking to see if the company itself had suggested a substitute, because they often do, and I haven't found any. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to probably just, actually, I think the whole thing would be better in acrylic anyway, or my all-time favorite, alpaca. But we're not going to do that. We're going to stick to inexpensive and colorful yarns for a while. So I'm going to have to go back to the pattern and check get more information on it. It's a bulky yarn, I know that. Not as bulky perhaps as this one, but it is a bulky yarn. And the one reason that I was attracted to the pattern, remember that V stitch that we used just a couple weeks ago for that that special little scarf I made for my mother? Well, it uses that V-stitch, and I really like that V-stitch. It's more half double crochet, but I like that stitch. So it gives a little bit of an open work, makes things kind of soft if your yarn isn't too heavy. So I'll go back and see what I can find for and if I can find it, I'll get some of that yarn or order some. I have to do a lot of ordering because, you know, with my mother like this, I can't get out of the house. Oh, and do you know what happened with her? We had her at church because she just loves to go to church and et cetera, et cetera. And we had her at church, and when she went to get up at the end, she was very wobbly, so much so that the people sitting next to her just gasped. You know, that was an audible gasp. So, this is going to be a dicey, tricky situation here when she becomes too unstable to be able to get out and go. And but we'll see. It's a kind of a day-by-day thing, you know. And I am going to just do our couple of chains here to turn. And I better get on with mixing up that oatmeal raisin bread, which it's kind of like a coffee cake. Sometimes I call it a coffee cake. Okay, I will see you tomorrow, and great crocheting. Bye-bye.